Hello viewers, welcome to our evening podcast at Out and Proud African LGBTI group, and today we are having a very special guest to speak about a very current hot topic that is making the news in the African media on LGBTIQ rights. And today in our studio we have an amazing activist all the way from Ghana called Jackiline.
Hi, I'm honored to be on your podcast.
You're welcome, darling.
Yeah.
And I'll have a question for you. What's the current situation that is happening in Ghana on LGBTIQ rights?
Right.
We are the children of the rainbow flag.
Ghana's Supreme Court has unanimously decided to dismiss two legal challenges to new anti-LGBT legislation that has been criticized by right groups. Earlier this year, lawmakers passed a bill imposing 3 years in prison for people identifying as LGBT and 5 years for forming and funding LGBT groups. Fear and uncertainty have gripped Ghana's LGBT community, which is already facing limited rights. The bill, considered one of Africa's most draconian anti-LGBT laws, has been condemned by the United Nations. Amanda Odoi and Richard Delasky filed separate challenges to the bill to declare it illegal and prevent President Nana Akufo-Addo from signing it into law. The President Akufo-Addo delayed signing it following the challenges to the bill. He said he would wait for the Supreme Court's decision, but after several months of consideration, the judges said the case couldn't be reviewed until the president had signed it into law. Until there's presidential assent, there is no act, said Justice Avril Lovelace Johnson. The two cases were unanimously dismissed. The proposed new legislation, the Proper Human Sexual Rights and Ghanaian Family Values Bill, was backed by Ghana's main political parties. But Mr. Sky said there were not enough MPs in the chamber when the vote took place. With his two-term presidency ending on 7th January, President Akufo-Addo has not yet revealed what he will do. Opposition leader John Dramani Mahama, who won this month's presidential election, has expressed support for the bill. If it becomes law, it is likely to face further challenges in court. Gay sex is already punishable by up to 3 years in prison in the conservative West African country, but this new legislation has already had implications. Even without the passage of the bill, people have been attacking members of a certain community. This kind of formalism actually put at risk the life and health of certain members of the community. The bill was first introduced to Parliament in 2021 but faced many delays. When it was passed, the controversial bill sparked criticism from the Finance Ministry, which warned that Ghana could lose about $3.8 billion, which is about £3 billion in World Bank funding over the next 5 to 6 years if it was passed.
Oh God. And if for the people that are watching us, if you're to explain the impact of this, what impact would this have to the LGBTIQ community in Ghana?
Oh my goodness, it would be devastating. It would be something, nothing you could ever imagine, because imagine this, nobody supports you. There's no effective state protection, not even the states. The laws of the land that is supposed to protect you is even against you. The community, everybody, public figures, presidents, like I mentioned, all against it. So it's going to there's just going to be like an atmosphere of fear, like no feeling of safety anywhere. Like you have to constantly wonder, am I safe in my own country, my own motherland? It's something of concern. It's something of great concern.
So apart from rejecting the petition, like what does the current law state in terms of LGBTIQ rights in Ghana?
Okay, so currently there's punishable a prison term of 3 years for people who are caught in the act of, homosexuality in the country.
Mm-hmm. And does that mean that with this petition being rejected, there is no any other appeal or redress or the opportunity of changing the current situation?
As of now, it's going to be difficult for an appeal to take place because the news that recently came out, the Supreme Court dismisses the legal implications the bill has. Do you get what I mean? Yeah, so it's going to be very difficult for like an appeal to be made. But don't get me wrong, there have been like certain people who have been bold enough to, protests. I even read in one of the newspapers that there was a solo protester who was protesting on the streets of the capital to demonstrate against the bill and the implications it has on the LGBT community in Ghana. Yeah.
Okay. So given this current situation, like what would be the next redress that you would think that people would take, especially the international community that are watching us, or
right?
Yeah, like what do you any sort of advice or recommendations that you would give with this situation?
So currently, many international organizations like the UN are strongly against this because it massively infringes on the human rights of people. Because imagine this, you're being told, like you're being warned and like threatened that if you are yourself, if you're a man who loves a man, or you find yourself wanting to marry another man, you are most definitely, facing risk of being imprisoned for 3 to 5 years, which is ridiculous. This shouldn't happen in modern day, 21st century. It shouldn't even be a topic for discussion. Right.
Tell us something about living as an LGBTQ person. Tell us about your upbringing, your childhood. What was it like?
So to begin with, I've not always been open. Being open is something that's like been very new to me because I grew up in a Christian home, a strict religious Christian home. My mom was a deaconess. My dad was a traditional person who believed in traditional values, the traditional way of family life. A man is supposed to marry a woman, have kids, the normal traditional societal norms. So that's the kind of environment I grew up in. So at a very tender age, that is when I realized I was into women. I was into my fellow girls, but I was very confused because this is something that has been put in my head since young, that it's a grievous sin. It was even compared to the sin of murder. So that's how like serious it was. So I kept it to myself, You just keep on trying. You would just keep on trying to convince yourself that it's not something you should do. So this is something you should try to get out of you. But one thing about human nature is you can't change who you are. You can't change what like has already been. You can't change you are you, right? So it's just something that just built up from one thing led to the next, and I am here today, open, happy, proud to be who I am. And I'm very proud of myself because my journey has been a very emotional one because it hasn't always been like this for me.
Okay, so I quote you say you're like a daughter of a deaconess. How do you reconcile your faith and your sexuality?
Oh, so currently, I'm not very religious like I used to be because I realized in, growing up in a religious home, you're being told that, if you're facing challenges, you pray. And when I realized when I would pray, like, nothing would change. Like I said, you can't change who you are. So there was just a contradiction. Pray and then you would receive, but it never really happened for me. So things regarding my sexuality just changed. But don't get me wrong, I still believe in God, but I'm not religious like I used to be.
So was there like any other point of struggling with, because you quote unquote, like at a young age, you noticed, you're attracted to your fellow girls, like a sort of immense struggle?
Right. Yeah, there were periods where I had to try to conform, but it didn't work. Like I'll keep on saying this, you can't change who you are. So even though I'll try to cover it up, try to please society, try to please my family, I just couldn't hide who I really was. Yeah.
So to all the people that are watching us, probably because there are people who are in the closet right now,
right?
They're really afraid of.
We've all been there. We know how it is. We know how it's been like. And
they're watching you right now. So, like, what words would you give them, or what would you tell them?
One thing I would say is, don't give up. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. Don't give up. Don't give up. Keep on persevering. One day you would live to tell your story. Because it hasn't been an easy one for us. But look at us now. We are, proud and
And what about how does it feel living openly as yourself in the UK?
How
would you describe it?
It's amazing. It's amazing to live every day knowing that you are safe, you are protected, you don't feel threatened by anybody. You can proudly showcase who you really are, and you don't have to conform to societal norms, you know? So it's been amazing for me.
All right. Well, thank you, viewers. As you have listened to this discussion, we are out and proud about our sexuality, and we are always keen on addressing very hot topics, as you have heard about the current situation that's happening in Ghana, and also reaching out to people that are watching us in the media to continue changing these narratives. And I remain your host for this show, Amanda Kamanda, and continue to follow us on our channel, Out and Proud African LGBTIQ, on YouTube, on Facebook, and on TikTok. We exist. Okay. So from our discussion, like, what message would you give to the current politicians? Because the discussion seems to always involve political things, and sometimes it's also to do with the biggest influencers, the policy makers. Like, what's your message on the big key decision makers that are affecting LGBTIQ lives?
I would say in uncertain periods like this, let's just remain hopeful, because I'm very optimistic that through our collective efforts of, advocating against this bill, something good can definitely come out of this. So let's remain hopeful, because I know it's not easy to, be calm in periods like this when you're not safe. But I believe if we are collectively advocating against this, something good will definitely come out of it.
All right. Thank you.